I am excited to be here today with Nicole Jansen, Team Manager at Innova Market Insights, and Hery Henry, Head of Strategic Marketing and Corporate Responsibility at Wipak. Innova Market Insights is a global knowledge leader in the food and beverage industry. Using advanced data analytics, they provide meaningful guidance on present and future trends in FMCG. Wipak is a global leader in developing and manufacturing packaging solutions for the food and medical sectors. They have not only set the target to be the world's most sustainable, flexible packaging company, but they've made a promise to be carbon zero by 2025. Innova has announced their top consumer food trends for 2020 and recently 2021, giving us an insight into consumer behavior and interests. Today, we will be talking about the importance of storytelling when it comes to selling products and communicating sustainable values. Before we get started, I'd like to welcome our two guests.
Yes, hi Liberty, and thanks so much for having me today. Yeah, my name is Nicole. I'm a team manager of the Insights and Innovation team at Innova Market Insights. And in my team, we're making sure that that basically all of the client needs when it comes to insights are being covered. So we show them how they can retrieve insights from our various platforms in order to draw conclusions themselves about insights and trends. And then, of course, on the other hand, we also make sure that we communicate relevant trends to the different teams, to the clients, and then make sure that they, with that, can come up with strategic decisions.
Hi, Liberty. Thank you for having me. I'm the head of marketing and sustainability, and in essence, I am doing my best to help write Wipak's story of becoming the first flexible packaging company that is net carbon neutral within 5 years.
Fantastic, thank you. For you first, Nicole, why does the story we tell matter to the consumer? And what kinds of stories do people want to hear from brands or companies these days?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, storytelling is really of ultimate importance because it's so closely related to transparency. And nowadays, the consumer really wants to have ultimate transparency about all aspects of the product. So it's really from ingredient sourcing, it goes over to why certain additives are in the product, but also in terms of sustainability. So how is a product produced? Like really, it's about the whole authenticity of the product, and that will ultimately help the consumer then to decide, okay, why should he or she buy this certain type of product?
I mean, if I may add to that, we see that the consumer doesn't choose the more sustainable product because he doesn't know beyond the shadow of a doubt that that is a more sustainable product. And that's the transparency trend that Nicole refers to. If we're not able to be so transparent that a decision to choose something more sustainable is easy and quick, then the consumer will not do it. And that's the problem that we face as the industry. Recent research from Finland finds that the large majority of people attribute not just blame, but also responsibility for the plastic crisis to industry, to manufacturing. We're far from ducking away from that responsibility. We take it very seriously and we say, well, we certainly have a role to play. It's too easy, too simplistic to say that the consumer needs to make more sustainable choices. We need to offer those choices. We need to offer them in a transparent way so that it's very easy for the consumer to make that choice. And that is our responsibility as the industry.
A very important point here, actually, make it as simple as easy for the consumer. It all refers back to storytelling and having very specific claims, for instance, around sustainability on the packaging. So it needs to be really clear for the consumer in what way the manufacturer has been doing something for sustainability. So just saying, for instance, okay, we are doing something positive for the environment, that does not help anymore because the consumer wants really specificity, like how much CO2 can be saved by buying this product. So we really go into very, very detailed claims to help the consumer understand better and make it more tangible for them.
If you want to play devil's advocate to the industry, you'd say, why not make sure that all the packaging just by default has to be sustainable? And be very transparent about what sustainable means. So the lowest possible environmental footprint that human technology at this point can achieve. Why not make sure of that? That needs to be the benchmark for us. That's what we need to go towards. And that's why we declared carbon zero in 2025. There's other packaging companies that have said 2040 because they want to be realistic. If we work through realism, we're all going to wait too long and we're going to boil the planet. That's what's realistic. So what we need to do is we need to reverse engineer of what it would take to make sure that we can save the planet. So we said, what would it take to be carbon neutral by 2025? Now we know we know it's a stretch target. There's a number of things that need to go right. Consumers also need to start making more informed, sustainable choices. But we believe they will when they're offered. And so far, actually, we've done a fairly poor job as the industry over the last 20 years. And where the trends lead us, we must follow. We must be able to provide the consumer and actually every part of the value chain with an informed choice. People should have the choice of paying more for more sustainable. And actually, according to Innova's trends, I understand the large majority of global consumers is willing to pay more for a more sustainable choice.
That's true. In fact, consumers are willing to pay the extra for different causes in relation to sustainability. That's true. We call it transparency triumphs. This is really number one. And we really think that brands, manufacturers, they have to step up their game when it comes to transparency from all different aspects, but clearly also from sustainability.
Can you give an example of what good storytelling looks like then, Nicole, in the food industry based on your research?
Consumers, they are expecting more specific claims, specific storytelling. One example that I really like, I've seen it on a meat alternative actually, was the manufacturer indicated, okay, by buying this product as compared to a regular meat product, you are saving this amount of CO2, or they're saying the amount of CO2 equal to a long car drive. Now, of course, you can argue that a long car drive is always defined a bit different, but those type of stories make it more tangible to the consumer, and they can better relate to that than if you just say, okay, we do something positive for the environment. Often you see that that you have the product claim. Of course, the product is natural, so it's talking about the product itself. But then what you see more and more then is how the packaging also adjusts to that, and you see, for instance, how more natural colors are being used, something like a beige or a soil type color, brownish, etc., or green. So it gives the impression of, let's say, naturalness. There's so much more to that, right? But then if the packaging actually just looks pretty and like is associated with naturalness, but cannot really meet the actual expectations on sustainability, so it's not a sustainable pack, but just looks like, I think that could become a bigger problem also for consumers with their increasing expectations around sustainability.
We have a number of interesting solutions now that are plastic free, and they may well go the same way as solar energy and wind energy have gone in the last 20 years. So they might be very good in the future, but right now they have a much higher environmental footprint, energy footprint than traditional plastic packaging. So I think we need to be very, very careful that we don't bring onto the market solutions that actually accelerate the decline of Mother Earth. We need to be sure that we make the best possible choice for the lowest possible carbon footprint. There are a number of applications for plastic packaging where that plastic should simply not exist. And in fact, even more importantly, us as the plastic packagers don't want them to be there because it's a really valuable resource, which is quite costly, which then is not available for the applications where we really need it. Like think about sterile packaging in hospitals, blood transfusion bags that we make, food packaging for perishables. There we have to be very careful. But the bottom line is very simply, you need to look at the lowest possible carbon footprint for the product that you're trying to protect. And that's what you need to use. And only then will we be able to save the planet.
No, absolutely. I think to tie that together, Innova's trend really highlighted the importance of sustainable sourcing, of responsible manufacturing, and employee treatment as well for the consumer when it comes to the product. That should apply to the packaging as well. If the product inside has certain values and the company does, the packaging itself can reflect that. And that actually leads me nicely into asking you, Hery, about Wipak. I know that you don't directly interact with end consumers, but provide food producers with customized packaging solutions. How can packaging itself tell a story?
We see that choices are made a lot of the time not based on facts, but perceived facts. So we need to make sure that the facts align with the perception. Packaging is exactly the same, by the way. It's not just the information on the ingredient, but it's also the texture of the packaging, for instance. So there are a number of materials out there that look like paper, but they're not paper. They're actually plastic. And there's a number of things that are deliberately been made to look somehow eco, somehow environmentally friendly, and people will pick it up more or more premium, whatnot. And people will, by and large, make their choice based on not facts, but the look and feel and the texture, the overall appearance of a packaging. So we need to make sure that we align the facts of what's inside the pack or what the pack is made of with the visuals. Then we're going to make choices as easy as possible. And this is exactly, we're circling back again to the topic of transparency that we had at the beginning. It's the year of transparency. It's an ongoing trend. We now have all the facts to provide that transparency. And it's probably the first time in sort of human history that we're able to do that at scale. Now what we need to do is we need to make sure that that transparency translates into better decision making. And that's the interesting challenge that we have at the moment.
Fantastic, thank you. And seeing storytelling as a way to achieve transparency, that leads on to what you say, which is trust between the consumer, the customer, and that trust ultimately leads to certainty and change. What story is Wipak's packaging telling?
I mean, the best way to tell the story is to stick to the truth about why packaging is so important. There's a reason why we package. The number one reason we need to make sure that the packaging is spot on is food waste has a much higher environmental impact than the packaging. In fact, if you take 6 pieces of sliced regular Dutch cheese, throw out one of 6 slices, then the environmental impact is roughly 10 times of that of the packaging. So if we must consume goods that have a higher environmental impact, then it's an imperative that we protect those goods so that we don't lose them. Now, then the second part of that truth is that there is a lot that we can do in terms of reducing the amount of plastic we use, reducing the weight, creating better materials, creating materials that are more easily recycled. Our path will go via the fully recyclable portfolio all the way to the bio-based portfolio, and still recyclable, of course. And that's where the big saving in environmental footprint comes from. We can prove that we have lowered the carbon footprint of some packaging by up to 80%, which is massive, and are not crude oil based. And this is the interesting bit. We want to get away from an oil-based economy. So this is one way to do that. The other parts of the story, of course, is that we can directly go to our customer, who can then go to the consumer and say, this packaging has a 60% lower carbon footprint, or this packaging uses 80% less plastic. It's so much lighter. It's a very exciting time now for packaging, because the industry has had a number of really good solutions, from well-nigh invisible barcodes to mono materials to really light materials, and they've been around for years, but sometimes the time for those solutions just hasn't come yet. There just hasn't been much demand. Research has come up with it, research and development, but it's not in widespread use.
The consumer, of course, needs to also be educated around all of this. And I think that is something where also, again, we can loop it back to storytelling. What does biodegradability mean? Those are things that might not necessarily be known among consumers. And of course, then the industry also has to take the responsibility to tell those stories, or to make sure that consumers also can be educated before they become all plastic haters.
Now there I have to push back a little bit. So I don't want to sound like I don't want the responsibility. I can't be the cheerleader for plastic packaging, the one who is extolling the virtues of plastic alone. I will need a partner for that. We'll need organizations that are third parties, that are credible and certified, and that are neutral. When we looked at our carbon footprint and we calculated it, we didn't certify ourselves to be credible. We asked a third party to come in and actually certify our results. So we do need help with educating people. We do have facts. We do have a lot of knowledge, because we're in the industry. We're industry experts. Everyone needs a mirror every once in a while. So no, we can't educate alone. That as the whole value chain needs to come together, really. And it would be very, very helpful to have actually consumer organizations. So they need to get together and find the facts and educate, because they will be that credible third party.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for your time today. It's been great to hear about this.
My pleasure. Have a good weekend, everyone.